on the nose. Look at that.
We're on TV too.
I should
so
probably
we're
say,
good
oh,
to
here
go.
we are. She's
Yeah.
got us on. This meeting is being digitally recorded, and it can be, later, it'll be transmitted, or be, what do you call it?
You can watch it on cable.
You can watch it on their cable TV, and sometimes it shows up on YouTube, so everyone should understand that it's digitally recorded. I'm working on making the sound better, so I'm gonna ask my friend in the control booth that if this sound is no good, she somehow signals us to make it better. Either turn your volume controls up or tell us to, what we usually do is we put a plan down on the microphone. We can't do that. So, anybody who wants to speak, like Dean, when you come up, we're gonna get you out of seat and right into the microphone. Your voice is relatively soft.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a low talker.
Here,
Hi. I have no way of signaling you. Just don't touch the mics and don't let paper hit them.
how does it sound?
Fine to me.
Okay, oftentimes in the past, you know, when you play this back, you can't hear anything, or you can't hear clearly. Do you hear it?
Yeah,
And you can adjust something, or?
not really, but
The volume sometimes when you listen to it on like the YouTubes are not very clear. That's why I think that's what you're referencing.
I agree, and people have said that to me. I'm trying to do our best, so,
Yeah.
just again, if you touch the mic or if anything hits it, it blows out the mic and that just causes more problems. Like then the mic will turn off.
Okay.
So
I just touched that one.
yeah, like trust me, I heard that.
Is it on or off?
It's on.
The green
Okay.
light's on,
Still,
so.
just yeah, make sure you don't let paper like hit it. That's
Okay.
the best way to handle it.
Thank you very much for coming in and telling us.
Thank you.
We have a board vacancy. 2 meetings ago, I was the vice chair, elected vice chair, and Tom Bratko was elected chair. And Tom Bratko has resigned. So I guess that's what vice chairs do. They step up when the chair is gone. His resignation is, I think, pending, if we could call it that, because Ryan McLean sent out an email about how we fill the position. Did everybody get that?
Mhm.
Then I think we ought to think about that, see if we have some candidates, and I'm gonna talk to Tom, and then we have 30 days, if I read that correctly, and I'd like to have an opportunity to review that and maybe even talk to Ryan about it. We have 30 days to tell the select board that there is indeed a vacancy. And our next meeting is before the 30 days are up. August 20th is our next meeting. You guys all aware of that? It's that joint board meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking that I would post a little mini meeting or a select board planning board meeting to start 20 minutes before the joint meeting, and we could just sit and huddle for a minute and get this letter off to the selectmen and do whatever we have to do according to Ryan's latest memo. Is that okay?
Will that give Patty enough time to
Gets a letter out.
do
in
a
time.
letter?
I'll send an email. I can just send an email. I can type a letter too, if that's what's required. I think it does. I think
It says
there's.
draft a letter, but it didn't stipulate how, so.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to Ryan and see
Right.
what's really required. And so, that's the plan. Do we need a motion to make that the plan, or,
I think we should.
all right?
I make a motion, we draft a letter at the August 20th meeting, as long as it's in the timeframe to keep us in compliance with the regulation, to the selectmen requesting the appointment of a new member to the planning board.
Well, you don't actually request an appointment, you inform them that there's a vacancy, and then that process starts forward.
Correct.
So, I like that motion. Anybody
Second it.
All right, all in favor?
Okay?
And that's what we'll do. I'll try to come to that meeting with the draft, and then we're just approving it.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Meeting minutes of July 11th. everybody get them? Patty
Right.
sent them around.
I've read them.
It's a 4-page document.
Cause I don't have access to that, my account.
I have a copy, you have a copy?
Now I got a copy right here.
All
Let me
right.
make a copy so I can make notes of the
Thank you.
changes. Make a copy on me.
They moved it.
I'm really not lost.
Get rid of a whole bunch of file cabinets.
Wonder where they are.
I wonder where they went.
They're in the closet.
There's a bunch in
This
the
one?
closet.
Oh, no. Well,
They
maybe
scanned
not.
them all
Yeah,
in.
there they are.
That's the fridge
That's
is.
what they should be doing.
Fridge is gone.
That's
Hey,
right.
they scanned them all in.
Take up a lot less space.
Oh, they got, the wire flag posted too now. First time I noticed that.
Oh, that's how we get it?
Right there, they posted the Wi-Fi with the passcode on the, right behind them.
So if I had my computer here, I could hook in?
Correct.
Have you ever done it?
Mm-hmm.
Does it work?
Mm-hmm. Works good.
Just a comment on meeting minutes. Last week, I hope, I distributed this checklist for creating and approving meeting minutes. And I'm wondering if you could just verify that this is in accordance with that. This is from the Attorney General, Division of Open Government. It was published September 25th, 2017, so it's pretty current. And the only thing I noticed was that the minutes must include a list of all the documents and other exhibits used by the public body during the meeting. Documents and exhibits used at the meeting are part of the official record, and they do not need to be physically attached to the minutes, but they are part of the minutes. So,
When I post them, I will attach them, but for right now, I do not have them with this draft.
okay, I'm only saying, I'm only saying that this document says we list them. Is that a big pain in the neck, or, because otherwise, how do you know what you have? I'm looking for compliance, if we can do it an easy way.
You want a table of contents? I don't understand what you're looking for.
Well, why don't we talk about this offline, and
Okay.
I'll give you.
Cause it could, I guess it could be a pain if we have to put in, you know, a whole document of a decision.
Well, the last time we talked, I asked you to talk to Lori, because Lori does this, you know, for the select board, and I'd like to comply with the law. I'd also like to make it simple, and I'd also like to be pretty consistent with the other boards, so that when the public opens up the documents, they know kind of what to expect. So, why don't we go over that sometime? So, back to the minutes. Alright. Do you have a goals document that's gonna be attached? We have here the goals were discussed at great length. Is there a goals thing? I don't need to see it now.
Right, I do
just
have
want-
it
okay.
ready to go.
That's
And
the
I
answer
did
then.
submit
The
it to
answer's yes.
Ryan. But we weren't sure if that was going to be publicly published or not, so I think we were waiting for,
Did that goals go to everybody?
no. Oh, did it? Yes, it did. After I typed it up, I sent it to all of you guys, but it didn't go public.
I don't remember seeing it.
Oh,
I'll check myself.
I can double check. I thought I did when I copied Ryan. I thought I sent you guys too. Just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, just get in step. Oh, well, this is the discussion of all the goals. Okay.
I make a
Comment?
motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye?
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
So the next issue is 147 Williamsville Road Solar Project. Changes to the project by Dean Smith from Borrego Solar. Step right up, Dean.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Did you people sign in? There's a.
They did.
Thank you.
These two lovely young ladies are from Borrego Solar as well.
Oh,
I
okay.
wonder why they were
They're-
smiling so much.
They're associate civil engineers with us, and they're just here to observe tonight.
You have your degrees?
Yes.
All right.
In civil engineering.
Yeah, they're
Good for
they're
you.
in our department, so
Yeah.
you may see their faces sometime in the future at one of
I have
at
to
another
say, it
hearing.
would be nicer looking at them than you, but.
Well, unfortunately, you've got me for tonight.
You've been doing real good all these years, so.
Before we
So-
start, actually,
Sure.
this came in as correspondence and we didn't talk about it, but this was from Borrego about the changes. And we just got
Yeah.
it yesterday, so nobody's had a time to review any of this stuff.
This is the hard copy, but isn't it true that you sent this email?
I did send it by email,
Yeah.
and it was delivered.
Maybe not the
It was
drawing.
delivered overnight, right after I sent the email, so it should have been delivered several weeks ago.
Delivered hard copy, you mean?
Yes, that should have come overnight, so it just must not have made its way to
Yeah,
you.
it might have made it to this office and they kept it for a couple
Oh,
days and
okay.
then, cause I just unpacked it
Okay,
on the
Just for the
30th,
record.
so it was actually, you're right, it
Just
was
for the
Monday.
record, it's a July 18th document that got date stamped July 30th, so.
yeah,
It's a
it is.
That's the date it
significant-
got- That's the date it got here, so.
Well, that's the day it got, that's your date stamp. It may have
Yeah.
been
Right.
someplace else.
Yeah, it would have gone out that day overnight from our
Alright.
office.
Is there anything in this document that's different than either what you emailed to us
No,
or what you have before us tonight?
no, there's nothing.
This is
that's
the
different.
governing document.
That's the hard copy of what I emailed to you. I emailed it that day and sent out the hard copies
Okay.
at the same time.
Then if everybody had a chance to look at the email, we should be pretty up to speed.
Okay.
Fire away, Dean.
So, the main reason that we're here tonight is to add an energy storage component to our approved PV project that's out on Williamsville Road. So, what that is, it's an energy storage system. They're lithium-ion batteries that store energy during the times of the day that the solar system is producing more energy than we can distribute into the power distribution system. During the sunniest part of the day, we would actually be producing more than we're allowed to transmit into the system. So that would all be stored in the battery systems and then managed for the time of use that's the highest use after the sun goes down. So when people are coming home and using appliances, those kinds of things, it tends to be for most of the seasonal parts of the year here to be after the sun has gone down, when people are actually using more energy.
Kick on an air
So,
conditioner or something.
yeah, the utility regulates us by our AC distribution out of the system rather than the energy that's actually produced in the system. So normally that would be what we call clipping, which we would be producing energy that's basically just wasted because we can't transmit it into the distribution system. So we're limited.
Where
by
does
the
it go
utility.
if it's generated and not sent out to the grid?
I wish I knew exactly
So
the
it
answer
must
to
go off as
that.
heat or something.
It's, you know, I'm not the best
Okay.
electrical engineer,
That's
but
not,
it
that's
it
not a
has to
relevant
do with
question. I'm just curious.
the conversion from DC to AC. The
Oh.
inverters use
Yep.
there's a conversion ratio there between DC and AC that's actually distributed. So it's between that and the transformers that send the electricity into the distribution system itself. So it's a benefit overall in that it kind of evens out the energy distribution from our system, allows it to extend further into the evening hours when people are using energy.
One question. You said
Yes.
the utility limits you on AC out.
Mhm.
Is that because of their ability to handle the AC current in the wires, or is that because of their own demand?
Well, it has to be converted to AC before
Well,
it can go into
all
their
right,
system.
what I meant was the
But
AC.
yes, their whole impact analysis is based on the maximum distribution out of our system. So if we were to go over that, or they let us go over that, then their impact study wouldn't really be valid. So they've analyzed the distribution system and assessed us for upgrades to that out to the substation where we're distributing the power to at this point. So it would put that at risk
All right.
if they allowed something otherwise. So if you had a chance to look at the site plan that I submitted, you would see that the energy storage system is located in the central part of our site. It's adjacent to where the equipment pad, the northernmost equipment pad, was on the previous layout. So I have a small copy of those here, just the overall. This is what was approved with your board. Right here where the road intersects, there was a small equipment pad area for the transformers and other switchboard and other equipment that are associated with the solar system were located. It was 1,257 feet plus or minus from this nearest adjacent residence. What we've got now is, in addition to that small equipment pad, we've got the containers for the battery storage system located adjacent to that. Because it takes up a little more width, it's pushed a little further away from the property line. So it's actually a bit further from the adjacent residence. And the roadway and the owner's residence, all of that. It's just a bit further away than it was in the original approved plan.
You got a picture of that?
I do have more of a close-up of that. And that's what this is the energy storage layout itself. And what we have are these NEMA-rated enclosures where the battery systems are arranged in racks within this enclosure. These squiggly lines are individual doors that open, so it's accessible from the outside all around. So that's all in this enclosure. The most similar thing that I could describe would be like a shipping container. This is 9 by 50, the size of this enclosure. So it'd be similar to a standard shipping container. And it's made with a corrugated metal material on the outside, so it looks kind of similar. The way that we're going to be constructing these, there'll be concrete piers on either side of that will set it up so that there's circulation of air under the container as well. It just helps with the climate control of the whole system. On the ends of the container, there'll be an HVAC unit to control the temperatures inside for optimum operation of those systems. It also has a sophisticated control system that's monitoring, you know, the storage and distribution of energy at all times. These other associated equipment that's off to the side, this larger box is a central inverter that converts between DC and AC power. There's a transformer associated with it there. And this is a neutral ground reactor, which I'm not exactly sure what it does, but it doesn't make any noise whatsoever. So the inverters are very similar to the inverters that are part of the solar system. The HVAC would be similar to what you might have, what your neighbor might have ground mounted outside their home. Be very similar to a residential type unit. So those are the major components of the system. It will also be equipped with an automatic fire suppression system. This one is a dry powder system, so in the event that there were some kind of an occurrence, it would automatically discharge that powder and extinguish the fire right away. Aside from that, those are what I know about the basic components of the system.
You described these as kind of like a shipping container.
Mm-hmm.
2 at 9 feet. They're
9
usually 8 feet by 9 feet by however long they are.
Right.
These are 50.
Mhm.
Do they come in on a truck, all assembled? And
They would come in completely assembled, just a single delivery for each of those.
so they're all factory checked for quality and everything. Okay.
Yes, so they come from
And
the
then-
manufacturer that way.
I'm looking down the cover sheet.
Yes, that gives
And
you the summary,
It gives
a
me
good
a
summary
summary.
of it.
There's no change in the AC power generated.
Correct.
So this isn't not in some way a bigger system or something. What
It
you're doing
is-
is
it is
storing
not.
some of it up.
Right.
And then you say the number and the type of modules. There's actually less
Mhm.
of the solar panel modules.
That's correct. There's now a more efficient module available. So instead of a 350 watt module, we can now use a 385 watt module. So there are fewer, and they're just spaced a little further apart. The general footprint of our site is remaining the same,
Yeah.
but we can increase the distance from row to row so that there's no inter-row spacing, and it operates in a more efficient manner.
So the acreage is the same.
Yes.
The modules go spread a little
Yes.
bit farther apart.
Mhm.
The AC power is the same.
Is the same, yes.
The decommissioning estimate. Why didn't that go up a little bit? When you get more stuff, don't you have to haul it off?
Well, because the number of modules
Oh,
went down,
counterbalance
which
that.
should more than offset what it would take to decommission this. And it really was basically based on a per megawatt basis, and this AC system size has not changed. So, in our opinion, because it's totally based on the amount of work that it would take to decommission this, because there are fewer modules, there's less disassembly,
Alright,
there's
so
less,
we got
you
the
know,
money
less
covered.
transport of that.
The only
Right.
other thing is the pilot, and the pilot, I think, is, the DOR sets it on the AC power, so that won't change.
That's correct.
But that's really not our business.
Yeah, I think that's
over
the
there.
town board that
Yeah.
makes that final decision.
So we got acreage, road, amount generated, number of modules,
Mhm.
and we got two shipping containers.
Right. So
Um,
it's a small change in that regard. It's not any closer to any adjacent properties that would be an external impact from it. The roadway layout is virtually the same. Stormwater layout is all unchanged from what you saw and approved before.
Any other drawing we should look at? Just so we're
I
thorough.
had only included the cover sheet.
Well, that just
Uh,
does this.
Yeah, it just gives you that same
Alright.
summary of the system layout, and I can provide a fully updated set, but it's just this change on those sheets,
Yeah.
and
Aren't they in here?
the whole set is not there, just the 3 sheets that I
Okay,
submitted.
okay.
It doesn't change any of our sequencing, it doesn't change, the stormwater layout or the clearing limits. So, it really would only be to show this on the plan view of those sheets. It doesn't change any of the particulars of the other sheets.
I am viewing this as a pretty minor change, but the devil is always in the details. And I think we can approve this, but we'd like Places and Associates to look over this because it's different equipment or new equipment. And the permit application didn't include it, but I think Places should look at the permit application item by item and say, with this, it either complies as you drew it, or he recommends you do this, that, and the other thing,
Okay.
whether it's a fence and a gate and a planting or whatever it is. I think it deserves Bill's or Places and Associates
Sure. That
detailed
makes
review
sense.
report.
That makes sense. It is
But-
an
I have
addition.
a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
With my experience with the batteries and the alarm systems and the suppression systems that you're talking about, if these batteries, what is the process if they blow up, they get contaminated, you get containment systems in there? What's the hazard if they overheat or they do explode? Where these alarms ring, who's gonna respond to take care of this?
Sure.
Is there telemetry?
There is, it's all will be connected into the data acquisition system that's already a part of what you approved. So that's continuously monitored. Alarms would go out to the operation and maintenance center. If we are given the contract for that, we have an operations center in our Lowell office. So they've got monitors going all the time, and those alerts would pop up there. They would send out crews if it was something like that. I think there are emergency signals that are discharged at the same time, so that if
I thought the
emergency
town was
services.
in some way informed.
I believe that system
Yeah,
also.
I think
Normally they
there's-
would call the
it
dispatch
would
center.
also
Yeah, there's a-
alert the
There's a
yeah, the fire.
telemetry to the town
Yes.
as well as to your guys in Lowell.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
And when you do some things like this, is there a procedure or a status that the town, people from the town would actually be updated on or trained on? So if they had to go and respond,
Yeah.
they would know what to do.
That's already a condition of our approval with your board.
I'm new, so I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
apologize.
no, that's
No,
that's
that's a
all
very
right.
good point.
You weren't along for the rest of the discussion.
Okay.
There is a very detailed condition in the decision that was issued that we provide training to the emergency services personnel.
Okay.
Visit the site with them so they're familiar with where the equipment is. There will be warning signs around the perimeter of the project that direct them to where the disconnects are and things like that. So they'll be individually trained on that before it goes into operation. So we've already agreed to
That's something
provide
Bill
that.
will have to, Places and Associates would have to go check, training
Yes.
is done and check and check
Yes.
and check down through the whole permit.
Right, and it's a standard thing that our operations division does towards the end of construction before things get placed into operation.
Yep, commissioning training.
Yeah, it's part of that whole commissioning
Great.
process.
Can I ask one more
Oh,
question?
please.
Is, on the previous meeting, there was discussion that there was a lot of items on the checklist that still haven't been taken care of. Is this?
That's the next item. That's
Oh, okay,
the
is this
other
the same
guy.
project?
No, it's the other
Okay,
project. This one
all
hasn't
right.
been built yet.
Okay.
This is-
All right, I
this
just wanted,
is-
I didn't wanna get
They haven't
confused,
even-
so, okay,
Put a shovel in the ground.
all right,
That's the update on the Gardner Road thing.
okay,
Same guy.
same
I'm gonna
company.
make him go sit there for a minute. Come back. Craig?
Thank
You don't thank me. Thank him.
Oh, no, I got nothing. Just wanna look into a few things.
On this?
Mhm.
Well, is it, if you do, and they're significant, I think it would be better to do it tonight than in a month. I don't wanna put you on the spot, maybe you wanna go off
I
and
wanna
do
do
that.
a little research on my own. I just
Okay.
made a few points.
Okay. These panels are always getting better and better, and, you know, next year's system will have even less of them, so.
Yeah, as they improve in efficiency.
I remember when they were like 275 or something, and now they're 385, and that's a pretty big jump.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. And you're probably, if you see future applications for solar
Do you wanna
systems,
be acknowledged? Oh,
Yes.
okay, you can put your
At
hand
your
down, I
leisure.
can.
At your leisure.
you're probably gonna see this kind of component in new applications too, just because it just makes for better performance all around of the systems and a better use of the renewable energy that's produced.
They're already in several systems. I did a little
Yes,
poking
there are
around and-
there are similar systems that have been built in the area by us and by others. So they are in practice, and they haven't been functioning for a long time, but they are out there in operation.
I got a, well, it's not really relevant, but I got a car with a whole bunch of lithium-ion batteries in it. I'm sitting on them. I'm going 60 miles an hour, and car will go about 300 miles. And it's
They're
pretty interesting.
improving that technology.
Oh,
pretty
yeah,
quickly,
yeah,
too.
everything's moving on this.
Yes.
Yep.
I was just gonna suggest that we have Places and Associates check it out. You already took care of that.
Okay, well, I think that's important. I don't expect any
Mhm.
upsets, but I wanna put it through a fine sieve.
Sure. It makes sense that they review this. They reviewed the whole project along the way.
Okay, let's acknowledge Mr.
Steiger.
Steiger. Francois.
You'll get used to the name.
That's all right.
But thanks. I do have some basic questions. The energy storage capacity of this storage facility?
Yes, it is 6.757 megawatts.
6.75?
6.757, yes.
Okay. The storage technology that is actually being utilized here, you indicated is lithium-ion batteries. They're
Because of this number right
installed
here.
as a single unit, or I hear you have two different facilities, two buildings?
Well, yeah, there are two enclosures to get up to that size. Each one would represent half of that storage capacity. But they're broken down into a number of components. There are individual storage cells
Mhm.
that are encapsulated. Then those cells are combined into what they call a module, which is a larger assembly of those. And then those modules are also enclosed. Those are assembled on racks into a complete rack unit, and that's also encased.
Okay. The other question I have is are these two units totally separate from each other, meaning that there's no interdependency on each other, or are they linked in any way, shape, and form? The reason I'm asking is from a control perspective.
Well, there would be a single control system that controls both, but they are in separate enclosures, and there's space between.
Is there any
them.
failover capabilities between the two systems from a control perspective, or is it a single controller that you have?
I'm not absolutely certain of that answer. I can certainly get that answer
I
for
think
the
that would
board.
be very
or
important for you to be able to
Okay.
provide.
Okay.
Why?
The reason is that from a electronic circuitry perspective, having failover capabilities is certainly something that you would consider.
Are you saying fail over?
Failover capabilities. If a controller fails for whatever reason, and you do not have a failover capability, you, in that case, have potential for the fires or the hazards that can sometimes come as a consequence of this here. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Okay. Well,
Having
it
a single
does.
controller often means that you have a single point of failure. It's called a SPUF.
So basically, you're
Yeah,
looking
but
at for
we're
a
not-
redundant
Okay.
backup?
Yeah. Just
We're
having
not-
that information for you and for the planning board, I think would be very important.
We're not regulating their availability.
I'm not saying that it is, but it's certainly a
Okay.
more favorable item to be considered. And from a basic engineering perspective, I'm thinking that Borrego would
Mhm.
assume that that's a good practice.
I think that, yeah, I'm not the designer for this
I
part,
understand.
so unfortunately, I wish that I could give you a better answer. I would assume that there is redundancy built into the system, and the control system for the energy storage system also ties into our data acquisition
Usually
system and
always
control
redundant
system for the
I know,
PV system
but
itself.
we don't design their system.
No.
From a
That's a
fire
good
safety
question.
perspective, do you have any information with regards to, as to whether or not there's hazmat requirements?
It's very similar to any other kind of electrical fire. As I mentioned, there is a fire suppression system inside each of these enclosures. So if there were an alarm or an alert about an elevated temperature, it would discharge the dry powder suppressant within the container.
And do you have
itself.
information with regards to what that dry powder
It's been,
is?
it's been submitted, yes.
Okay, good.
It's, let me see if I can look that up for you.
I'm sorry, Bill mentioned something in my ear and I missed your question. Could you repeat
I
your
was
question?
just asking as to whether or not there is information about the dry powder system that is being
Yeah.
referenced.
It's in here.
It
That's
is,
great, and
there,
the
there's
reason
a
I'm
data
bringing
sheet.
this up, so this can be, potentially be cataloged and be provided and
Yes.
presented to the fire chief, so
Sure.
that in the event that they have to come to a fire, they're aware of the type of
We
situation
have,
they have.
we
Yeah.
have the fire chief signing off on all these.
Right,
The fact
and
that there
the,
is a new building coming up, does that require, and this is maybe sort of more a general question,
What new building?
well, there are two, not building, but there are two structures that are being added to this here,
two
right?
enclosures, yes.
Enclosures. And And it's a very basic question. Does that require a new building, does that require building inspection of any sort?
Well,
We
the
know.
entire system will be inspected,
that's-
from
has
an
that-
electrical point of view, from
No, I
a
meant it from the
mechanical point of view.
Because this is a change, that's why I'm asking, does that have to be re-reviewed at this point in time, or is the review still in process?
It's
There-
going to be
yes.
reviewed
Gotcha.
by Places and Associates. If he feels that he has to come to the fireman, or if he feels he has to go to the electrical inspector, he can make those recommendations and we'll pursue it. In general, though, yes, it'll all be inspected.
Fine, I'm
Nothing will make it in here without, being
Just-
inspected.
Just
I
to
understand.
add one point to that particular issue, we don't have approval to construct with the planning board's approval. We also have to go to the building department and
Gotcha.
obtain a building permit
Yeah.
for this.
And they supply the inspectors.
Right, they would have electrical inspectors, building inspectors, all of that.
Excellent. The other question I have is where, you have indicated that systems like that have been implemented already by Borrego, correct?
Yes.
Is an identical system that is being proposed here that you've already implemented in other places? And when I mean identical, meaning the similar technology, similar controllers, similar fire suppression systems and so forth, or is this a net new system?
It is not a net new system. There are some improvements over some of the earlier permitting that we did. And there are several manufacturers that we're working with as vendors.
Okay.
So this particular system we have not installed anywhere, but the technology is very similar between those three suppliers. There's Tesla Systems, there's NEC, this is IHI that's
Okay.
being proposed here. But they're very similar construction, very similar technology and components, and very similar control systems.
Excellent, thank you. And I apologize, I mean, for me, it's, and she'll
Don't
process, which I'm hoping that
apologize.
you'll understand. I do have a final question, that is this, and I do understand, Tom, that you do not deal with a pilot, right? I mean, the
The
whole-
pilot is negotiated by the select board when
The
we
Board of
give them,
Assessors. The select board and the
well,
board of
select board
assessors.
and board of assessors, when we give them the green light.
Gotcha. And then
With-
this will be a matter that I can take on with them subsequently, but would it be fair to say that this adds value for Borrego in the sense that you are now capable of producing energy that you're storing and therefore not wasting, and therefore being able to sell it at a later point in time?
I would say, in general, there might be a small difference, but
Pilot, because you're putting out more power.
No,
And that's what the
I
whole pilot is
disagree with
based
you
on.
guys.
Well,
Wait.
that's something they can talk about.
Yeah,
This
you're
one-
getting a little ahead of yourself.
The pilot hasn't been approved
is
on this yet.
negotiated.
I'm not asking about the pilot, I'm
Right.
just asking about the value to Borrego at this point in
Right
time.
here. AC is 4950, 4950. They're not making more power. They're sending it out over the day in different quantities.
That's correct, but it's the same thing as you collecting fruit and it's spoiling versus being able to store it and being able to sell it at a time when there is a value for it. And so as a result of this here, every single one of the companies, and yours is, I mean, you're actually doing a very, very good job when you're looking at potentially storing this here. I'm not asking you to justify what you're doing. I'm just simply saying that from a value perspective, from a value proposition perspective, the net power that's actually sold to the grid at any point in time now with the design versus the amended design will be potentially different. And that's
Right.
certainly something that I think ought to be considered.
That's not claimed in the documents.
I know it is not, and that's why I'm bringing it up.
Well-
because the power is proportional to the sun's rays hitting the panels.
But that's.
It's not proportional to a battery.
But that power is actually now being stored and therefore being utilized and being able to be provided at the utility grid level
Okay,
during a
I'm
different point
done.
in time.
I think, we're getting down at the details
I
that aren't
fully
planning
agree
board
with-
issues, so I
agree with you.
apologize for driving down to that,
I have one last
that
question,
road.
if I could. With my experience with suppression systems and all that, and I've seen a lot of systems over the years where they get installed and put in, they're supposed to be tested annually, biannually, and that's supposed to be all documented and set up, and all that documentation goes to the fire department. Is that something that's worked into this whole program?
I'm not certain of how that portion of it will go. We
Okay.
can certainly
Just a note.
include that in the operation and maintenance
Okay.
portion. And we will be working with the local fire department on those issues, so
Well, Bill,
it certainly
um,
can be part of
Right.
the maintenance.
Places and Associates does, I think you'll agree with me, they do a pretty thorough job.
They, yeah, they
And,
do
I'm
a
confident
thorough
that when
review.
he gets through it, we'll have a good documentation trail and a good,
Good.
operation and maintenance plan. But it will require Bill's work. So you would fund that
Okay.
in your usual manner.
Mhm.
Talk to Bill, get the estimate, figure out
Okay.
the flow of the money. Do it 1 second,
Alright.
Ed. You don't have to hold your hand up, I'll get to you. And so, you would fund Bill's review. I believe his review isn't a review of the whole thing, it's a review of these
the
changes
additional
and the
components,
impact
yeah.
of the changes.
Put it in there.
And,
Email?
what else should we do?
I
Mhm.
mean, I think that's the right next step for you, is to have him review it and make his judgment. It's really what your decision says about changes that we propose along the way is that your agent should review.
Yeah, this is
So-
not, we're not inventing something here.
Right, no, it's just it's really according to the measure of the conditions that you've placed in your decision,
Okay.
so.
And then, so I think we ought to do this by motion. I think we ought to have a motion that says that the board recognizes these as a minor change and, approves it pending, Places and Associates, review of the details, and more importantly than their review, their report back to us.
Exactly.
Now, I'll stop right there. That's a,
Mhm.
that's a,
Do we have to prove it now? Can we wait until we get the review back from places?
we can reprove it right now.
Well, what?
Otherwise, things grind to a halt. I suggest my motion,
I second that motion.
all right? And, this is a minor change. There's really two, the batteries and the number of panels with no change in area, no change in power generated. And, we want Bill to look it over, so, all in favor? Aye. You're not in favor of this?
No, I'd rather wait until we get the response back from the
Who's
company.
saying it's a minor change? I'd rather see Bill's report before we agree to anything.
I agree that I would agree that I'd like to
Well-
accept the changes and present them to the company and have them get back to
Bill
us.
will analyze them,
Right.
but Bill, I don't know that Bill will come in with either a minor or a major. I'm within my authority to declare it a minor. No one agrees, then no one agrees. I don't know that Bill will have that same authority. He will give you the details of what's changed. He might give you an
what
opinion.
Tom was saying here in discussion that the company that Bill works for would review everything, get back to us saying this looks good and let's move forward with it. Shouldn't we wait to have that information back to us before we vote on approving it?
How long will it take?
That would depend on his time
Well, his
frame.
availability, but how many weeks does it take?
It generally
No, but,
takes them 2 to 3 weeks to review
Is
a
that
full
not-
submittal, so something that's more of a more limited nature, I would expect would take less. but, I would have to talk to him about it, but I would think within 2 weeks
Could we
he'd be
get this
able to
on
do
our
that.
next meeting agenda real quick, as long as it comes back and,
I'd like to move it along as fast as possible.
Well, if Bill comes back and everything's A-okay, I don't see why we can't just do it to our quick meeting on the 20th.
All right,
We
let's
just
put it on that
pass it
agenda.
right through.
We'll move it along there.
I just feel more comfortable, that's all.
All right, well, that's what we're after. Can you add, well, can you make a note that we'll put that on the 20th?
So would you want me to appear before you at the same time in case there were additional questions? from
Well,
my
it all
end?
depends on Bill's availability. If Bill's going
Okay.
on vacation, you know, this thing
Okay.
grinds down. I don't know his availability. In the past, what was the normal process? You speak directly to him, get this thing rolling, he gives you an estimate,
Yeah,
we move the
we
money
can.
and we.
Yeah, we provide the check and
Is
then
there any reason
I-
for me to get in the middle of that?
I don't think other than the check has to come to the town
Well,
for
sure.
deposit, yeah, because
But-
you would be paying his
But I don't
fees,
wanna
but-
get into the logistics of, I don't want you
Sure,
calling me
mean,
up and
we're-
saying, go check with Bill.
We've worked with Places Associates enough that we can
That's
just
what we
reach out
want.
to them directly and
Yeah.
coordinate with them. It'll speed the whole process up.
Right.
That's good.
Then I'll get out of the way, you go to Bill, and, we'll roll this along, we'll try to get it on by the 20th, if not, we have a meeting in early September.
Is your time frame for September modified by the holiday at all?
It's not fixed.
Okay.
Why don't we just keep you informed?
Okay, we can just keep in contact.
Do you need to plan that far ahead?
Not really,
No, 'cause
no.
usually they slide it to that next day. is
Yeah,
usually
if
what
that, if
happens,
anything, it
I'll
usually
let
just
you
moves
know.
the
Well,
day
the
or
holiday
two.
isn't
It's
a
on a
Wednesday.
Monday
Holiday
anyway,
Monday,
so,
so it'd be the
yeah.
Wednesday the 5th,
Yeah.
Yeah.
next one.
So that one probably isn't a problem anyway, and I'll make myself available whenever it works.
Well,
for
Bill's
the
the
board.
secret, and he's
Yeah.
not here, so.
Okay, I'll reach out to him tomorrow, I'll copy all of the board members.
Alright.
I'll send him a full electronic copy of what we've submitted, so that he has it all in hand. If he needs hard copy, I can follow it up with hard copy, but I can coordinate directly with him, and then as soon as he lets us know what deposit we need to make with the town, we'll get that cut right
So
away.
this is another
and-
one of these iterations.
Yes.
Alright, that
And
sounds good.
obviously, we're already planning ahead for a deposit towards
Right.
the
Be-
construction side of things, but
Before you leave your
yeah.
seat, I have one more customer over here with a question.
sure.
I was
Ed?
just wondering, if we're gonna bring structures into the complex, and they're over 100 square feet in size, does that require a building permit to bring those in? 'Cause I know that our
yeah.
zoning doesn't allow anybody to build a structure or bring in a structure that's over 100 square feet. If it's under 100 square feet, you can do that. But I think that might require a building permit to bring those in.
These are over 100 square feet, and our system constructing the racking and assembling the modules on it already requires a building permit. So it'll just be incorporated in that building permit application.
Oh.
So after we get through all the board approvals, that's the next step for us.
Okay.
We our electrical engineers will have to add a lot of detail to the plan set, and what's 10 or 11 sheets now will become 35 or 40 by the time they're done with it, and that'll be submitted for the building permit. And we need that approval before we can do anything on
Thank you.
site.
Am I correct that as you sit here tonight, you have no building permits, and you're
We
going
do
to have
not.
to initiate that process?
We have not.
So
We have
that's
not
where he
even
is.
initiated the
Yeah.
detailed design yet internally.
I can confirm that.
Sometimes it helps when you have more than one hat, right?
Exactly.
Is the board happy with
Yes,
where
thank
we're
you.
headed and what we're doing?
Yeah, sounds good.
Very satisfied.
Okay, very good. Thanks for your help, everybody. You have to go sit over there for a second, come back.
Okay.
No. And
I can
tell us
move the
about
seat, too.
the Gardner Road solar project. I read a couple emails about it,
Mhm.
but it doesn't sound like it's quite resolved yet.
Right. Unfortunately, the transfer of ownership and the way that all works from our end becomes very complicated. From a legal standpoint, the system buyer actually closes on that sale earlier on before we actually go to construction. But they don't actually accept any of those improvements in the ground or any of the responsibilities that go along with that in terms of, you know,
Well, they
responses
close
to
with
the town.
conditions.
Right,
Yeah.
that's all a condition of the approval. So they're funding the construction, but they're not actually accepting ownership of the improvements in the system itself until everything is completed and signed off by the town. So we're still, the attorneys are still talking back and forth, because one of the things that they're going to need to do when we actually have all the transfer documents to provide to the board is that they're going to have to reimburse us for the cash bonds that have been placed with the town for construction of those systems, and it's $111,000.
Yeah, we have it.
And a little bit more that's on deposit with the town for decommissioning of the system at the end of life. So they want to make sure that everything is buttoned up from a legal standpoint before they arrange for reimbursement to us for those funds. So they did provide to us last night a red line of the transfer agreement that's coming your way.
This is the ownership transfer.
It's the ownership transfer, yeah. We did notify the board earlier on of the transfer of the assets to the new company.
If I recall correctly, that was just a letter.
It was just a letter notifying the board earlier on. So the other legal documents are still working their way through. We sent it on to them months ago, and they're just getting back to us now, so things move a little slowly. But at this point, Borrego is still the responsible authority. We would be the ones that you would come to for any deficiencies in the system, any problems. It would still be our problem to resolve at this point. So Borrego is taking full responsibility until that transfer is completely signed off and completed. The items that Bill outlined are mostly related to that. One of the things that he wants to do is do a final walkthrough. He had some really minor comments the last time we walked it together. It was towards it was really kind of still wintry at that point, so he wants to take a look at it during a warmer time of the year so he can see everything, make sure that everything is up to snuff for the town. So it's mostly just all of that paperwork stuff. He had a half a dozen items that we'll respond to. We need to get that paperwork finalized with the buyer before we can provide all that to you. But I can reach out to him and arrange for a walkthrough if that's the board's desire at this point, or if you want to wait until that documentation is all in your hands and then have the final walkthrough then. Some of this we did provide before, but I'll make sure.
By documentation, do you mean the ownership transfer documentation or
yeah,
the
there's
project
transfer
documentation?
There's transfer documents, which we're working on. The decommissioning bond transfer is the other part of that. The permission to generate was actually issued by the board, but he's saying that he needs to do that final walkthrough. So we'll do the final walkthrough from him, whatever the timing that's your pleasure.
Well, I'm hearing, I'd like to break this down into like two sections. One
Okay.
is the physical system down here.
Okay.
And then there's probably gonna be this pile of paper about ownership transfer.
Yes, there are two issues.
I bet the ownership transfer guys don't want to accept this system until the physical system has been completely bought off.
I think you're completely correct about
So
that.
we can go ahead, and in fact, we should go ahead to continue to get the physical system bought off with Bill's checklists and your work, and
Okay.
get that signed off. The town is happy, Borrego has met our requirements, and then there's this ownership transfer thing. And I think we can separate them. Now, I don't know the extent to which Bill would be involved in the ownership transfer thing. I think what he's done is held up some red flags and said, you know, we've got this money that we gotta make sure stays with the town.
Right.
And
Mhm.
fortunately, we have the money.
Right, and that's
So-
that's what the other discussions were.
Yeah.
So rather than the town sending that cash back to us,
Yeah,
and
that was
somebody else
silly.
placing cash,
That was silly.
there's you don't need.
You're
to
gonna take
exchange
care of
the
that
funds. Yeah, it'll be
outside the
between,
boundaries of the
it'll
town.
be between Borrego and
And
the
come
fund.
in and say, all right, now the money is the other guy's money instead of Borrego.
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right, I think you should continue to finalize the physical plant and get these things done and get them
Okay.
bought off by Bill, and Bill will come in with his report to us, and then we'll say, okay.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I will, when I reach out to him tomorrow, I'll ask him to schedule a time. Our project manager had suggested some times to him before, but I don't think he felt like he had the board's full authorization to go ahead with any of that, so.
All right. Again,
with
you're
your
funding this effort.
authorization, yeah.
You're funding this effort.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there are still funds
I don't know
left.
either, but you're gonna have to talk to
Because we had
Bill.
placed deposits for that before, so there may still even be funds
Yep.
on deposit with the
That's fine.
account, or with the town to cover that. But if not, we'll supplement it as necessary, so, I'll talk to him about that as well.
One more thing I forgot to, well, wait a minute. How are we doing on the Gardner Road project? You guys happy with what was
So far,
just
so good.
reported?
Yeah.
Okay. Then go forth and see if you can get Bill and get the checklist, the punch list punched off.
Okay, yeah, there were only a couple of items that it will be very easy to verify with him. We can walk the entire site. I think everything looks good. I've been by there
He
recently
usually
myself.
Comes back with some pictures and a report, and that's what
Yeah.
we really wanna do, put
Okay.
in the file. If that is the bulleted item, I wanna just step back one more thing. On 147 Williamsville Road, I was asked, can the town initiate discussions about the pilot? And I said, yes,
Mhm.
because the things that the planning board hold are things that would stop the finalization of the pilot, not stop the initiation of the
Right.
pilot discussions. We get in at the end to make sure everything's satisfied. So Ryan asked me, and I said yes, that from the planning board's perspective, you can always start
Mhm.
discussions.
Sure.
You just might not be able to finish them until all these other conditions are satisfied.
And I'm not certain, but Zach Farkas, our project developer, may have already reached out
He may have. I'm-
to start that process.
I'm
He
just-
normally would when we're getting close to the end. He might have even reached out back when you closed the public hearing on the original application. But of course, like you said, those things can't be finalized until you have your stamp of approval on everything.
Yeah.
But they're the ones that have been negotiated, like the ones that were established for the Gardner Road projects, were based on the AC system size. So that's what he would be negotiating with them, but it would be between the selectmen and the assessor's office in assessing what the added value was and what that payment in lieu of taxes ought to be to the
And
town.
that has to be done in a public meeting.
Yes.
That'll be done probably
Right,
here.
it would-
An open meeting, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wanted to say that I said yes, because there were discussions tonight about pilots, and I wanted to
Mhm.
just state that that was the communication that happened.
So there'll be another public hearing that's noticed, and yeah, it'll be discussed in
When
a
do you-
public forum.
When do you think your lawyers are gonna be done?
I think very soon, because we were waiting.
I'm surprised.
We were waiting for their end, so I have a little more pull with our internal counsel, so I'll make sure that they turn that around quickly. I didn't see anything in the red lines that were sent that threw up any red flags
Okay.
for me. It was mostly just adding some more detail to what was written there. So, I would expect that they can approve that and execute a copy and send it back for execution on their end very soon.
Okay, I think you did a good job tonight. Thanks for coming in.
Sure,
I
I'm
hope
always
your
happy.
colleagues are satisfied with this process.
They'll grade me later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always happy to come and appear before your board.
Well, thanks for your time, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't believe you've ever met Dean before. have you?
Well, I'm
No,
Bill.
I
This is
don't think
Bill.
you were
Oh,
on the
make sure
Bill
board
Hubbard's-
yet the
I'm
last
sorry,
time.
I should have introduced you at the beginning.
That's okay, I'm used to it.
That's all right.
Um,
Hopefully I'll be back, well, at least one more time, but hopefully
Oh,
back
introduce
again in the future.
Francois?
Yeah, this is Ed Blanchard and Francois Steiger.
He's the
How'd I do?
associate member.
You don't have to introduce me, I'm not involved at all.
Francois is the associate member
Why?
of the board.
You're here.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay, so
Well,
maybe
there's
a
some-
It's
picture.
official because I'm still not official.
Oh,
Okay.
there's some lack of officiality.
Oh,
about it.
okay.
So with the opening, you
Yeah.
may become a permanent member?
No, no.
Or, does that all have to be voted on? How
It's
does
quite a
that work?
process.
Okay.
We talked about it, I think, just before you got here, but we have about 2 or 3 more weeks of work to line all that up,
Mhm.
and then you actually advertise for it and get candidates and go through that process. And,
So it's not easy.
well, no, I think it's easy, it's not complicated.
It just
It's
takes a
that
little time.
It's, our town administrator just did an excellent job of outlining how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we ought to pay attention to him and do it right.
That works.
Yeah.
Thanks again for your time.
Thanks
you.
for coming.
Nice to meet
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you. this evening.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that
Second
motion.
that. Or, you want to second it? All right, you second it? All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash. We're